Hello and welcome back to another Perspectives. And I've been wondering if anything would cross my radar, cross my mind. And I've been moving around recently with some travels. And during that, one of my travels, I was asked a question. And the question was, do I think that what's going on in the world, all this, uh, you know, events and control and everything, is it about money? And my answer was all these shenanigans that's going on in the physical world. Um, a lot of it is through finance and using money, but it's not about money. And you could say, because money is often literally created out of thin air by, by these groups and are now just created by digits. But money is an exchange of energy. And this exchange of energy, like most exchanges, allows certain benefits uh, according to who gains from the exchange. And so the question was, is it about control? Well, in a way, yes, on a physical level, um, because control is a way of gaining the upper hand through utilizing the energetic exchange. Um, but of course, control is still a very physical thing. Although, now increasingly there can be control of how people think, mind programming and narratives and conditioning, but it's still very much largely a physical aspect. And my understanding of my answer was actually what we're dealing with is what I call the human question. Is that the bottom line is, how do we consider ourselves as human beings? And how do we consider our place in reality and the grander scheme of things? Because if you can control how people consider themselves as human beings, then you've got the whole game covered. And so we've been obviously conditioned to consider things in a very physical, materialistic way, is that we are just human bodies. And as human bodies, everything is based on what we can do externally. Of course, then we're more easily controlled. Um, if we were to recognize more and more that who we are or what we are is not the body, we can call it a spirit or soul, an aspect of a greater intelligence that is having a life experience through the human body, and that the death of the human body is not the death of us, because as these spirit souls, we are eternal. We're not in time and space. Only the physical body is. So then you see, would be less susceptible to exterior control because we are aware and perceive a depth of understanding and life beyond the physicality. But this physical paradigm has been always through human history. And that's why the human question is so critical now, because it will define how we go forward. Now, for example, the general narrative of the human being through evolution is very physical. The dominant narrative is a Darwinian narrative in various forms. It's been updated, but the general Darwinian version is that through the evolution of the physical body, it's gone from the fishes and amphibians and mammals to two-legged creatures to two-legged sapiens and now to Homo sapiens. That the body is an extension of a long line of physical adaptation, and we are at the end of our so-called physical adaptation in the physical body. So if we think of ourselves as being the descendants of this line of physicality, then it's more understandable or rational to consider that we are therefore the precursor of a continuation of some form of body. But if the human body has come to the kind of end of its growth because we don't need any more hands, we don't need any more legs. Where can the human body go? Then we now have narratives by saying, well, the human body can be augmented. It can start to merge with technology. And then we go down this transhumanist route. So this line says, well, the human body is just a product of physical adaptation. Now the environment's changing. It's becoming a technological environment. So the body must adapt and become technologically augmented for the next phase of physical evolution. That seems quite a logical argument. And also into this, they're playing this idea of what I call the hypothesis of the weak body. Is that the body, although it's been evolved to this degree, it's still susceptible to disease, especially now when new diseases are coming across, the globe from, passing the borders. We're having new novel diseases. We're having, ailments and incurable diseases. And, we're dying. We're mortal beings. Therefore, to prolong that, the next evolution will be augmentation and transhumanism. And so the body needs that to develop to the next stage. But of course, the human body is very, very resilient, highly resilient. But we've been throwing everything at us to make us believe in this weak body hypothesis. But the body has developed physically, exterior-wise, internal biology, internal neurology, the cellular structure. That's all evolved. Now I come to a point where we have to understand involution. Now, involution, as it's been termed and recognized, is basically inner evolution. Is that the next stage of evolution now will be internal capacities, such as faculties of perception, heightened cognition, a greater expansion of awareness in the consciousness field, perhaps even mind-to-mind communication, which is known as telepathy. But thereby the body, as it is physically, if it's left alone and not targeted, will be very resilient to these physical conditions on this planet. So the next stage is to develop our inner capacities, involution. So we can have heightened awareness of the greater field of perception through the spectrum of awareness and consciousness. We can also have contact with other intelligences that are part of the intelligence field, and another kind of psychic capacities. Of course, we've been conditioned to laugh and scoff at these ideas, psychic capacities, telepathy, and all this has been like the stuff of fantasy or science fiction. But of course, you notice how it's been hijacked, because there are tech companies who are now developing these brain implants, such as Neuralink, and I'm sure there are many others. And they're saying, well, but we can do it for you. These stuff of science fiction, we can make it real. You can have computer to brain interface, which will then be brain to cloud interface and brain to AI interface. And so we can use this technological architecture as the middle broker between communicating with other people. Of course, what they've done is that they've hijacked this involutory path, the path of organic development of these faculties, hijacked them and put them in a material paradigm and say, no, you can't have, telepathy. That's just maybe a few freaks have that. But, humanity as a whole has to develop it through now augmentation with technology. But it's hijacking and sabotaging and substituting the real for this material physical narrative or paradigm. And that's why I think it's a human question we're dealing with, because control, etc., is part of the narratives, but they're trying to substitute the human question, what it means to be human, how the human being fits into reality and the larger picture, and they're substituting it with a replicant, which is a technological path. And it seems that there's not enough recognition of the involution path. It's always been very quiet, that. And perhaps it hasn't been taken seriously enough. Even now, when we talk about where we're going in the future, it's like, how can we protect ourselves physically? Where do we place ourselves, and that? But there's very few discussions about how can I work on myself? How can I, try to develop the muscle of my interior capacity, my interior perception, to be prepared for where we're going? Of course, there's a physical aspect to this, but that's part of the life experience. We may not be able to change certain aspects of the planetary life around us, or the shift in physical circumstances, but we can, and perhaps we do have a responsibility to change the interior condition, the interior capacity, and that for me is involution. So I feel that the human question is the question of where we are now, because it will, in a sense, direct where we go to from here. So just a few thoughts there on involution. Just as I'd finished this video, the first time I was speaking about involution and the human question, because these are quite spontaneous chats, as you are aware, I was just reading a passage from a book that I have ongoing, and a nice phrase popped up. They called it the hypnosis of incarnation. And I think that's a good phrase to kind of put this situation, is that because we are pulled into this physical narrative, and we are unaware, perhaps to the degree whereby our involution, the involution, is a part of our ongoing development, we are kind of hypnotized into the physicality of our incarnation. And so I was just reading from this book, and it's a book of meditations. And, and just coincidentally, as it happens, I picked it up literally just about an hour after I finished my first chat on this subject. And I thought I would share it, a part of it. So on this meditation, it says, the author says, being immersed in meditation early in the morning, I realize that the goal of inner light is the sacred center of the human being, while the body is a separate entity. I look at my body from a side and see that it is not me, but some strange person answering to my name. He has been misguiding me for so many years, stating that I am him, while he is me. I say to him, I perceive myself as an immortal spirit, while you are my outer corporal cover. When your time is over, and the flesh smoulders to ashes, I shall again return to the radiant world, which is invisible to you. Between us, there would always be a struggle without rules. The flesh tells me, identify forever with me, and forget about the subtle world. The memory of it is of no use on earth. I wanted to take this perishable flesh with me into the subtle world, but the flesh got stuck in the material world, like the proverbial camel in the eye of the needle. The perception of the flesh is limited by the world of matter. When I manage to separate myself from it, realizing that I am a radiant spirit, I come into the worlds of golden radiance. These worlds are incomprehensible to you, my transient flesh. Though you try to drag me down to earth and mislead me, I still manage to steal my way into the world of spirit through an invisible door. I have to live the life of my essence and not that of a material puppet. I am so fluent that I cannot be myself. I change my outlines and forms like water. My fluidity enables me to be what you are, my perishable flesh. And if I forget about this transformation, I begin to live my life as if I am you. I forget my longings, being identified with my body, which is full of concern, and receive in return things that belong to it. That's an extract from, I'll put the link below, a small book called The Doctrine of Inner Light by Konstantin Seribrov. So maybe that ties in to this idea of the human question. The human question is that we are more than our bodies. And if we can perceive this in this lifetime and comprehend that our journey is a journey of the life experience and involution parallel. We have a physical life experience and we have an experience of the inner development. And then we can see that the life of the flesh is just one part of it. And that, in fact, not the major part of it, because it's the part that we will ultimately leave behind when we continue our involution. And very likely, when we get to the stage of leaving the flesh behind, what can we take with us? Only that which we have developed internally, our state of perception, our state of awareness, our state of the conscious spirit can continue, but the flesh is left behind. So that's why it is a human question. The human question is, what is human? It's a combination of the spirit and the flesh. But if we ignore one without the other, then we can be as puppets, as the book says, we can be as flesh puppets, or what I've referred to in my own writings as robo-sapiens. And therefore we can be more easily tricked into other narratives because we are not taking our essence with us in those decisions, in those understandings. We make decisions based on the physical, the exterior, the temporary personality. And so all the time we can be pulled into the chat GPT because we're not having the real chat with me inside, the interior me. So you could say the chat GPT takes us away from the real me, if you want to rhyme. So I thought I would add that. So, as always, in the future journey of involution, stay well, stay healthy, and stay grounded. Cheers.